All right. Welcome back to the weekly roundup with the coaches. We are PSN Coaching. That's Jennifer Silbernagel, Mike Russo, Melissa Taylor, and I'm Dylan Silbernagel. This is where we talk about everything that came up in our coaching program this week, stuff that we saw happening in the market, how we helped agents, challenges that we saw that we came up with a strategy to overcome. And yeah, that's what we do every single week. So make sure that you check us out on your favorite podcast, provider. Platform. Yes. Thank you, Mike.
You were doing so good right up to that.
I know, right until then. One day I'll write this thing down and we'll be really good to go. All right. So today we're going to jump right into it. And we heard about an incident with one of our agents of what happened with one of their clients at our brokerage today. And Mike has the story. He's gonna share it with us. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and share some of the ways that we help prevent these things from happening. And also other ways that we prepare our clients to avoid little things that happen. And I know if you've checked us out before, if you go back to week 2, we did setting expectations with our clients so that you avoided a lot of other challenges. We're not doing setting expectations. We're just talking about how we can prepare our clients throughout the process so they kind of know what's coming next, and it's a smoother process in general. So Mike, tell us a little bit about what happened and the scoop that you got for us.
Yeah, so basically what happened this week was agent reached out to me and said, her client called them and mentioned that some items had been missing from their home after the last showing. So obviously very alarming. It's like, okay, so what is it that's missing? Well, it's a whole bunch of jewelry and a watch.
Jesus.
And it's like, oh, wow, that's very serious. Was it out? Were those items out in the open? No, they were hidden in, dressers and underclothes and all this stuff. So it was like very well taken care of, very well put away. So initially, obviously speaking with the broker record and all this other stuff, there's a bit of a process that goes on with this. And so the process that we decided to go with is number one, finding out the valuables, how much they're worth. So we have that determination. Checking in with the agent that did the showing is the next step. We just kind of gave them a call and said, hey, some items went missing after your showing. Was there any suspicious activity? What kind of happened? And so we talked with them. If we don't love that response, reach out to their broker manager. If we don't love that response, you can reach out to their broker of record and have that conversation, have a further conversation. And then obviously you could possibly go through an insurance claim or call, in this case, we end up, the client or the realtor ended up calling York Regional Police and just had a phone call with them as to make, I guess a bit of an investigation, open up a report and see if they can get to the bottom of it. But the crazy thing about this whole situation is like, there's so many areas that we do so well, right? And it's just like, it's so unfortunate when something like this happens because there are those people out there that have, bad intentions. And the agent themselves are really, really great. They've been absolutely on fire with what they're doing. And it's just a series of just unfortunate events that has happened to them that this went wrong, right? And, when you dive into it a little bit more, there's, some more details that are interesting, like, the buyer agent being there, their scheduled time is from 10 to 10:30, right? So it's super important that as an agent, when you have a booked time, you're in that time frame, right? Because of this exact reason. In this circumstance, the homeowner came home at 10:30, which is the end of the time, and the current buyer agent was in there till 11:30. So that's an hour and a half in your house, right? That's enough time to go through some stuff.
Absolutely.
Right? So
that's where my head would go as a homeowner for sure, right?
Exactly. So as a home, and again, not to say that the buyer agent is responsible for anything, but that looks very suspicious as to why are you in my house for an hour and a half or an hour over the time that you're allowed to be in, right? And I know agents do this all the time. Like I've had clients that are at home past the showing time, and then the realtor shows up and is like, oh, sorry, we're late. Well, it's like, well, that's not how this works. You have a specific time. So when something goes wrong during that time, you're the one that's liable for that. Yes. You are on the hook for that. We have your information, right? And so it's super, super interesting to see kind of we don't know what will happen from there. We're kind of in limbo right now, but it'll be interesting to see what the result of this all is. And it's a reminder of those like check marks that we go through in our systems to make sure that we have everything covered, right? And again, it's not to say that the agent wasn't doing her job because they were doing an amazing job. It's just they unfortunately were targeted, I guess, or the result of someone out there that had bad intention, right? So now throw it to you guys a little bit here. What is it you guys do? Because I know personally, I don't think I've ever told my clients, hey, make sure that your valuables are locked up and secured away because you never know, right? It's just not something I've ever done. right? And now looking at the situation, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be doing this every time now, right? Like this is what happens. This could happen. So what is it you guys do to have that touch with your client?
There's a form that is used. I wish I knew the number. It's funny. All the young agents know all the forms by number, and I'm like, look it up. I know the name of them. I don't know the. So there's the open house and lockbox form, right? Someone else can look up what that number is, and have that filled out. And I know our old broker of record. I know when she was here, she would always say like, "This is just to secure your position, right? This is to give you protection." And what I love about that form is it triggers you to speak about those things because it's listed right on that form. So on the form it specifically says, keep your insurance on your property. We say it in the listing agreement as well because there is a clause there that explains about keeping insurance on the properties, but keep the insurance on your property. There are going to be open houses and we make every effort to be with someone, but we can't always be right beside them. So we want you to protect take them out of the house, remove them from the house if it's something that, you're really concerned about. And I find when you set that expectation with them, they're like you, Mike, they're like, oh, I never even thought of that. Like I never
didn't think of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. So it allows them to think about it and take part in the prevention of that happening. And then once they know that that is a possibility, it's not such God forbid if it happens, it's not such a shock as I never knew this was even a possibility. It's like, oh, this is what they were talking about, right? But hopefully their products have been removed. But that's what we do. I don't always use the form if this is confessional.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do always say it. Like I say the words, but I don't always get them to sign that form, which is, something.
Down the opposite. I always get them to sign the form, but I never even
Oh,
Did I just do that magically?
You smacked Mike right out of here. It sounds like it looked like his internet was having a bit of a struggle there at the beginning.
Yeah. The timing couldn't have been more perfect.
That was hilarious.
Jenna, I want to go to you for a minute. Have you ever experienced anything like this before? Did you ever have a challenge like this?
Yeah, I did. So years ago, I had a listing down in Leaside, and it was even more challenging because it happened during an open house, and I wasn't the agent hosting the open house. It was another agent from my brokerage who was hosting the open house because we were away that weekend. I can't remember exactly why. And there was actually it was a busy location, and so there was 2 agents in the open house. So I did make sure to have enough people to kind of try and cover the traffic. But I got a call or a message later that evening from my seller saying that someone had stolen something. And what was kind of funny about it was the most arbitrary thing. Like it wasn't jewelry. It wasn't like anything you would think to take. It was the soap dispenser from the bathroom that was like a set. So they had like a set and they just stole the soap dispenser. So at first it was kind of, we were joking around about it being like, oh, like they must have the same set at home. And like, you can't.
Yeah. They were missing.
Right. Like why would someone take a soap dispenser? And then she got back to me, a day or 2 later and was like, she had Christmas presents in her closet, small Coach purse things, wristlets, right, for her nieces, and they were all gone. So I talked to the agents that had done the open houses. It was like, did you see anyone suspicious? Did you have a couple come in where they separated one? Because that's a common approach, right? That you'll see one person will take the agent and start talking to them, and then the other partner goes upstairs. That's usually, it's not to say that's
when we get everybody back together.
But if you keep them together, keep the groups together if you can. They're like, no, we didn't see anything, no suspicious behavior. We walked around with everybody. It's like, okay, well, there's not really much I can do at this point. It was an open house. It wasn't a scheduled showing. So I have the list of agents who came in, but I don't know who came in with agents and who came in off the street. So we ended up, trying to do the right thing and be in integrity. I got her to evaluate the value of what was taken and I just paid for it. It was like, you know what, like it happened on my watch. It's my responsibility. I have no way to track it. I don't even know which broker to call. So there's nothing I can do other than reimburse you for the lost items. So that was what I did. And we just moved on from that. It was fine. They appreciated how it was handled. But it sucked, right? It felt bad to know that someone had gone through their stuff.
It's so invasive.
They were
That feeling
uncomfortable.
is
It was
the worst.
invasive, right? Are they going to come back to their house now that they've walked through it and try and take more? All those thoughts start to go through the client's head. So you really have to like navigate it a certain way. And we say the same thing, exactly the same, Mel, like I've always done it, where we say, you know, this most likely is not going to happen to you. However, it's just a safety thing that we tell all of our clients. Please make sure before any showings, before any open houses, walk through your house, take any jewelry, any iPads, any expensive electronics, and either put them into a safe or remove them from the property or hide them somewhere very discreet. Hiding is not the best option because people can kind of go through your drawers. However, if you don't have another option, it should be fine. And set that expectation in advance. And a lot of the time, our clients actually remove their valuables and put them at their parents' house or their siblings' house or whatever for the duration of the time they're on the market. That was always been my approach before that happened and continuing after, because if we don't tell them, they same as Mike, you just might not think of it. You might just be like, oh, like
Exactly.
it's an open house, no big deal. But I've walked into showings and there's been an iPad laying on a bed, right?
Yes.
And so I could pick that up and put that in my purse. Not that I would, but somebody easily could drop that into a tote and you'd never notice, right? So it is,
or even those jewelry boxes, right? How many times have I gone into, you know, a primary bedroom and there's that jewelry box, the ladies' jewelry box is on the right on the wardrobe, right? And it's like you could open it, it's like full of jewelry, right? All her stuff's there.
You know what this reminds me of is all the times where we've been on the listing side and you get a realtor.ca lead or somebody from the internet that says, hey, I only want to work with the listing agents or whatever. And you've got no relationship or history with them. And there's a lot of times where I say, like, I kind of know that you've got somebody in the background that's a realtor. Everybody's got a realtor. But if I don't know you and I'm now responsible as the buyer agent, this is why I'm asking you all these questions, because internet leads, phone leads, cold leads, they'll ask them the questions and they get kind of upset. Like, I feel like you're interrogating me. Like, why do I need to sign this? Why do I need to send you my ID? Why do I? I say, well, I'm responsible when I take you into somebody else's home. And we have met now only over the phone or through emails. So there are certain steps that I have to take to make sure that I'm being responsible and professional before I take you into somebody else's home.
I love that, Dylan.
Right?
I love that.
It really reminds you when you hear these stories of why we take those steps.
Yeah, it's not just about lead gen, right?
No,
like
it's not just about, I'm not just trying to get you to sign a contract with me. I need your information.
Yeah.
I'm taking you to a home. I'm not taking you to a business or a store or an event. You're going into somebody's home and they don't know you. And at this point, I don't know you if you're a cold lead, right? Because I think on the listing side, we always hope that the buyer agent knows their client, right? So that when a situation like this that Mike is sharing, the buyer agent would immediately put their hand up and be like, I don't know how this happened, but I know my guys. I've known them for 8 years. We've done 3 deals together, whatever it might be. They didn't take it. Right. And hopefully then you can track it back that it was another showing. These guys were on their time. Seems like there was a lot going on with this one. But nonetheless, I love when a buyer agent can say, like, no, these are my guys. If I ask them, like, how do you know them? They're like, oh, just kind of found them on realtor.ca. They called me the other day. Then I'm a little more suspicious, to be honest. Right.
And you know what? You have to remember that, because I went to a showing. This was interesting. This is just a very quick aside about being conscious and knowing the people. And this is my vulnerability. So in this instance, someone called and I was, they were in the UK, all of this, trying to coordinate it to see my listing or our listing. So I finally the only time they can meet me is at 7:30 at night to see a 100-acre farm. And I show up and I happen to bring our director of operations with us so she can see the listing. We're standing in the kitchen in the pitch black and she says to me, so tell me about these clients. And I'm like, I have no idea. They're from the internet. And she said, so you were coming here by yourself, pitch black, on a vacant 100-acre property? And I'm like, good point. I said, I would never let one of the agents on the team do that.
Yeah.
Like, we're consistently talking about their safety, making sure.
Yes.
And then I do it. Like, what? So yeah.
So I actually have a funny story about that. I went to a CMA from a guy I cold called. Okay. 10-acre property. He's like, yeah, come on by. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'm like, great. I'm so excited. He sounds like a nice man. Pull up to the house and I can see he's in the backyard. He just walks in his shed. So I'm like, okay. So I walk out, la-di-da, walk up to him and I'm like, hey, sir, how are you? And I turn the shed and he's standing there holding a shotgun. And I'm like,
No.
"Whoa. Hi, nice to meet you." And he's like, oh, hi. And he was, again, very nice man, but he just happened to be putting his shotgun away at the time. And I'm like, listen, don't mean to invade. I'm just here for the home evaluation.
Yeah.
And he's like, well,
I know how you rural guys care about your property lines.
so he goes, let me take you around the property. So I'm like, okay, sure. So I'm walking this guy's 10-acre property with him, and he is holding his shotgun. And I'm now like at the back of his property. I'm like, I am literally at the back of this guy's property, and he's holding a gun. And he could kill me, and nobody would hear it. And that would be the end of me. And I'm like, wow, this was incredibly stupid on my part. But I just went along with it because I'm like, oh, he seems like a nice guy. Why would he do that? Right.
Yeah.
But again, you'd never know. And so the creepy part about this whole story with the taking the items is the homeowner, as they were leaving for the next showing, there was somebody outside the house. So she walked out and the guy said, oh, are you so-and-so? And they happened to say, no, like I'm the homeowner of this home, whatever. And they were like, oh, we were told to meet somebody here from Facebook Marketplace. We're here to buy something. And she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And the guy's like, oh, it must have been the wrong address or a hack or something. I'm sorry. And he left. And it's like, was the person that stole these items, did they already align up somebody to purchase them? And then they now have gotten rid of the items for cash and are now completely gone and now wiped clean of the whole situation. So you never know. And so a great solution to this that I thought of is, it'd be a great touch. I don't know if you have those Nest cameras or whatever other cameras you can buy, but bringing that to your client's house and setting that up on behalf of your clients of like, this is a part of a feature that we add as part of listing with us is we actually have additional, it's the Ring doorbells or whether it be the camera system. This is what we're going to add to the house just to create that extra bit of security for you and your family at the time. Could be a great addition. I don't know. It might be creepy. They might not like it.
No, I think it's great.
Something I thought of.
Yeah, I think it's great. We've actually explored doing that a couple of times before the Ring doorbells came out. We had these weird little ones that I don't know. It was before the technology got good, but yeah, that's a great thing to revisit. I love that idea.
And just remember, if you do something like that, if it's on the inside of the house and it records audio, you have to disclose it on your MLS listing, right? Legally, it's a Canadian.
I didn't know that.
You can't have a camera or anything that records audio in a house and allow people in who aren't aware that their conversation is being recorded. So just be cautious that if you
that happens a lot too. It's all over the place. Oh,
yeah. You bring up the interior, Jen, but you guys remember, we all say, let's step outside and talk. The majority of people I know that have cameras on their garages and we don't think about it and we're standing in the driveway going, so what do you think? And guess what? The homeowners get to hear it all too, right?
Yeah.
So be careful of your proximity to that house.
Yeah. Be careful of your proximity to the house. Take your conversation off site. Truthfully, go to a coffee shop, drive down the street,
phone call, Zoom call.
Phone call, Zoom call,
phone calls in the car between properties, whatever. But if you are going to put in equipment like that, make sure you're in compliance because you never know, right? And a lot of people do it and they aren't, and it's fine. That is what it is. Just we want to be compliant, right? So in case
absolutely.
there's never it's crazy, right? It's not a topic you want to stay on too long because we don't like to think necessarily that it happens a lot. And yet we if you talk to enough realtors, a lot will have a story of something like that happening.
I can't think back to anything ever going missing. Knock on wood, we haven't had that issue before, so I'll just leave it at that. But I like the idea of the Ring doorbell or of like some kind of monitoring system that you provide as a step of service because they're pretty affordable now, and it's a write-off. So get it in there and have that as an option. And then exactly what Mel said, go through the paperwork that our office already provides. And there's already steps from Maria as well that can help you with that. And as Mike and Jen do, make sure that you're having the conversation with your clients beforehand. I'll say that a lot of the time I think mostly of open houses when I go through that process. I don't always think of the actual showings with the buyer agent, right? It's like you were saying, Jen, where you go on a showing and somebody's left their iPad on the bed. Right. And it's always shocking. You turn and you're like, really? You just left your iPad on the bed? I like to believe that everybody's safe and nobody's going to do anything bad here. But at the same point, that's just a little too blatant.
When we get towards April 1st, April Fool's Day, we have to do an episode about the craziest thing that you've caught on camera or that's happened at one of your listings. I think
Yeah, no doubt.
I got to get one for that.
No doubt.
Yeah, see?
I got a couple spring to mind pretty quickly.
Yeah. I got a few. I got a few that I don't know if I'd want to share, but there's a few.
Oh, I'm definitely sharing mine.
Yeah.
Bad light for sure, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. So we said that we would talk about other ways that you kind of prepare your clients through this process, right? This is a great step to make sure that you're preparing them for in terms of protecting their valuables during showings and for the open house. Is there anything else that you guys do, whether it's with a buyer or a seller, that you do to prepare them throughout the process?
One of my biggest things I love to do this point is when we go on a showing, you know, you're going through so many homes. Some of them, you know, you got to take your shoes off. Some of them are really, really rough and you don't want to take your shoes off and you want to keep them on, right? But you always feel awkward. But then you look at the floors and you go, oh man, like this is something else. So I actually bought just from, I don't know, Home Hardware or whatever, just like a little shoe, what's it called? I'm forgetting the name now. It's
The booties.
Yeah, and it just goes over your shoe, right? It's kind of
Yes.
like a hairnet. It just goes right over your shoe and allows the client to walk through the home in their shoes, no problem, and doesn't get anything dirty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's super, super easy. And every time I pull it out, every buyer goes, "Oh, frig, that's a good idea. That was good." And you grab that. And there's a couple other things like I always like to bring on a showing. Again, pretty handy, but like a laser tape measure. You never know when someone wants to actually measure a room. And I always carry as well in case there's any wet spots on the property. But it's I'm forgetting the name of what this thing is, but it looks like a stud finder, but it actually can measure the moisture in the wall.
Moisture reader.
Sure. I like the name of that,
Yeah.
moisture reader. There you go. So it measures that in case there is a problem, right? So if someone sees there's a wet spot or water damage, well, let's see if it's actually still active, right? And it actually helped me out last week on our open house. We had a client, or my client actually, in the basement. He has a tube that is a freshwater runoff from one of the toilets. And it's connected to this black pipe that goes to a drain. Well, what happened was the pipe had all the calcium buildup, popped it out. So someone goes through the open house, they go in the basement, they come up and they're like, hey, not sure if you're aware, but there's like, 3 centimeters of water in the basement. So I go over to the house right away. I wasn't doing the open house, obviously. So I go to the house with my client when they come back and we're trying to go, and I got this, I'm measuring all the different joints, all the wood beams, make sure the water's not coming from upstairs. And then we happen to find that it was from this pipe, and we solved the problem. So there's no big issue. But I'm on the ground. I'm feeling the actual cement to make sure it's not coming up from the ground, which is always important to know. And it turns out it was just this pipe. So we dodged a big bullet there. But again, those little things do add up on that showing that can help provide more value for a buyer, right? Or a seller.
Mm-hmm.
I love those. I wrote some down, Mike. Thanks.
You're welcome.
One of the things I learned, and we forget this, right? I always say we speak real estate and our clients speak English. And, when we say we're going to go out and we're going to see 3 homes, rarely, if you leave it at that, they don't question. They're just like, okay, great. What time do we start? Where do we meet you? What they don't know, and it's our responsibility to communicate, is what is the time involved that is going to give them the expectation. We have, especially now when a lot of the showings are 30 minutes, we have a 30-minute opportunity, and we've set this up chronologically. So we are back to back to back. For anyone who is, and if you're out there, client, I know you, we still talk and I love you, but when they want to stop for wings in the middle of your showings that you already have, or they have kids that you weren't prepared. So it's like, I expect this to take X amount of time. Please pack snacks. Have some maybe yourself for kids. But think of that, because they don't know. And if you've ever been at a showing where they're wandering around and they're looking at the flakes of paint and you're looking going, okay, I am backing up about 4 showings right now if we don't get out. It's like, oh yeah, so what do you think? Right? So really managing and leading those.
Love that.
That's a great point. And you know what I do when I book the appointments is I will send them the addresses that we got confirmed for and the times that we're confirmed for. So it's like, okay, we're meeting at 2:00. Our last one is from 4 to 5 if we're seeing a bunch in the middle, but they can see them. And then you have that script when you talk with them about this is how we're going to go about our showings, right? And when
Love
you've got
that.
those really high C personalities that it takes you 15 minutes to get out of the front foyer because they're inspecting every little inch of that home, like you need to be ready to tell them, okay, before you even get to the house, here's how we're going to approach it. You know, we're going to go in, we're going to get a sense of the space. Does the layout work for you? Does the condition work for you? We're not going to check every little thing. We're not going to check all the measurements. Let's see if this is the right one. We've got 5 others to see, and we're going to come back for your favorite 2, right?
Yeah. Love that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you got your high Ds that it
print-
doesn't matter. They're just flying through that house. And you're like, but you didn't see the rest of it.
Those are my people. I love those people.
And when I email them, like I love Dylan, email
Yeah.
them with the times on each house.
Yes.
I print it too, because every single time they get there and they're like, how much was this one again? Like how much? Like they never know. So make sure you're printing.
You're bringing the listings.
You know, and the attachments that are included. Don't be looking at the counter so you can see what the heck is included on this.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to Mike real quick because we talked about this last summer, and I think it actually helped you convert on a deal, like one of the first times you implemented. But bringing a set package with your buyer, you know, we talk about, of course, bringing a copy of the listing, bringing some of the recent sales, like some of the comparables, so they instantly get a sense of like what it's going to cost, especially when our market's hot and we list low to sell high. How confusing that can be. But Mike, do you remember the package that I'm talking about and when you put it together?
Yeah, I believe it. Like it was kind of like a CMA package, right? So I use them now all the time. So I have like a Team Russo branded package that when we go on a showing, I put all the showing paperwork. I put anything to look for in the house. I actually have on that like the land transfer tax, like the age of the furnace, all that stuff. If you want to, like, we'll write it down as you need for whatever your favorite listing is. And we put all the showings in there. Is that the one you're referring to? Something
Absolutely. Like that's how I'm talking about in terms of preparing for our clients, but also preparing our clients to be able to make a decision. Because look at all the information, all the questions that you just answered for them before they even started asking.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is I learned a lesson once was, and again, I had advised one of my clients on how much land transfer tax was going to be on a property 3 times, once via email, once over the phone, and once in person. And still, they got their land transfer tax bill, and they're like, whoa, I owe a lot of money in land transfer tax. And I'm like, what the heck? I told you this like 6-7 times already. Like, I don't understand. So now I literally have it in the package that you have to write in the number so that there's no excuse as to like, you did not know, because I've made you write it down on that piece of paper that if I want to buy this one, it is, you know, 5,000, 10,000, whatever the amount of money is in land transfer on that property. But it also helps because, again, when you get in that home, especially if they're really well staged, your eyes go to the furniture, right? So you need to bring them back to how old are the windows? How old is the roof? What's the condition of the furnace, right? And we need to note these things down because that's a big financial commitment you're making ahead of time before even moving into the home. You're buying what the home has to offer, right? So if you buy a home with bad windows, you now have to replace that. And so by having them acknowledge that stuff, and then on top of that, providing them the comparables that are in the area, they can look, okay, yes, this is a fair market price for this home, or no, this is low, or this is high. And they can make that determination on their own, right? Which is our job.
I will tell you though, I have another tip, but I got to say in this, I actually do the opposite, which maybe you can cut this part, Dylan, if you don't like this part. But
I'm going to give you the full attention you deserve, Mel.
I find, and I tell my agent, because one of the things is like, oh my gosh, we're going to see 5 homes and I don't know which one they're going to want. I tell them it's okay not to know the comps at that point. Like, don't waste time doing a full CMA for every single property, right? Like you're able to have knowledge of it for sure, but don't waste so much time in prep that you're not, you know, just in the written CMA. But I do have to tell you, you were talking, Mike, and one year I did a ton of referrals. Right. Yep. And when we refer clients out, like obviously it's to someone we trust for them, but they may not. This came up a long time ago and someone called me back who I'd referred and said, like, we're working with her. Yes, we like her, but she's not you. Like, she's not looking at the she's not looking at the this and the that. So what I created, and it's been so handy, is just a little, you know, so-and-so is going to take care of you. I know that, you know, but just so you feel armed and prepared, here's some questions. I want you to make sure if they don't let you know, ask these questions while you're in the home with the realtor.
Oh, I love that.
And it was things like age of roof, age of infrastructure, you know, like all, and it was a little checklist. And I use it with every single person I refer now. And it's like, Thank you.
Nice.
Like I never
adds that
thought.
touch in there. Yeah, I
Mhm.
love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it's not like you're throwing them over to the other agent. You're still placing them with care, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Mel,
absolutely.
you did make a great point there. We don't want agents getting bogged down doing 4 hours worth of work for 2 half-hour showings, right?
Mhm.
I think my advice there to anybody, just to be super clear, would be just as you're printing the listings that you're showing, print the last sales on that street or on the last couple of streets around it or in that small community for the last 30 days if you're doing the community, a little bit longer if you're doing the street, but just print them and have them there. Don't do a full CMA, because then that's the discussion of like, hey, when you pick out the one that you guys like, then we're going to sit down just as if it was a listing. I'm going to do a full market analysis for you. I'm going to give you my 3 prices. I'm going to tell you what I think market value is, what I think would be a great price, and then what I think you might have to pay to get it, right? So it's just kind of going through all those steps. But I'm really glad that you brought that up. I would never cut out anything you mentioned, Mel.
Okay. Hey, the year is young. Let's see.
Yeah. Jen, is there anything back when you were selling more regularly? Is there anything in particular that you remember doing to help prepare your clients throughout the process?
A lot of the stuff Mike and Mel and you kind of have already covered. So for showings, for sure, I would send them a schedule in advance. I would email it. I would put the address. We're starting here. This is our start time. We have 30 minutes or we have an hour in this property. And I always tried to keep 30 minutes if I could, because an hour in each property is a lot when you're showing them 4 or 5 properties, right? And you never take an hour unless they're going to buy it usually, or they're very, very slow, which you learn quickly. And then I would put in the drive time to the next property, and then I'd put the next property address and so on. And so I would lay out their entire schedule for them, and I would always send that to them the day before. And I would always ask them, are you bringing anybody else with you? Will there be any children? Do we need to schedule any stops? Because sometimes when they have kids, they need to do a bathroom stop, or they need a snack, they need to hit a Tim Hortons or whatever, and that takes 30 minutes out of your timing. So I would always ask that in advance and allow for it. If it was like 5 or 6 showings, like if it's 2, obviously no, we're going to the 2 houses and then you can get your snack after. But if it's like 5 or 6 places, which you would, when we had inventory, you would often show that many in one outing, right?
Yeah.
I also always had a rule. I never showed more than 6 properties in one outing. So I would, if there was more than 6, I would send them to the client and say, send me your top 6, which are the ones you're the most excited about. And then I'd let them cut out the other 2, because I might make the wrong call there. I don't know. Maybe, the one that's closer to their in their school district is the one they like the least out of that batch for whatever reason, right? So I would always ask that question. And then the other thing I always did at the initial consultation, specifically with buyers, I always had a package like similar to what you're talking about with Mike and the kit and all of the stuff in it. But I would put together a buyer's guide, like a buyer package. However, I always put it in like a binder. And so the one part of it would be, the buyer's guide with all the info and the process and what to expect and how to submit an offer and da. And then at the back, I'd have a section that was for their showings, so they could make notes in it. This was also, some of this was when we all had phones.
Everything's digital. Yeah.
However, some people are still pen and paper people, and clients would bring that with them to showings, and they would write their notes in it, and they would and they would carry it around with them, which is kind of cool because it was marketing. They would carry around this little binder with our brand on it, right?
Yeah.
So I always provided at a consult something like that for those high C's, which is, our analytical guys, or our S's who are note takers and want to make sure they don't miss anything. So they had a way to track all of that. What I started to do more when tech became more available, we still did the package, but I would also take notes on my phone as we walked through the houses. So if they made a comment about something, I would put the address, and then I would say, really loved the kitchen, didn't like this, and then I would send them that after our showings to help refresh them.
Your overview, right?
We're getting
That's good.
Confused. Yeah. And that was always a little added value touch as well. And if they had kids, I always brought snacks. I had granola bars, bottles of water, things like that. Especially when people used to come in our cart with us. That happens a lot less now. Yeah. But there was a time when you'd pick up your clients, right? Those are
I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
The snacks. I love that idea. Bringing something.
Yeah, think about your best Uber experience. Remember when Uber first started and they really cared about your business? And they would have like like water for you.
Yeah.
They would have snacks and all of those.
I just had that for the
things.
first time, not too like literally 2 weeks ago. I took an Uber and the guy had a water, and I'm like, "What's this for?" And he's like, "Oh, if you're thirsty, it's yours." And I'm like, "Shut up! Are you serious?" I'm like, "Never seen water
5
before
stars.
in my life."
I
I'm like,
had
"Oh my god! I'm
never
suddenly so
experienced
thirsty."
Yeah.
Crack it
Yeah.
open.
I've never
Yeah.
experienced that. Yeah.
was
It makes me
awesome.
think of your Uber experience with from the airport, Mike, on the way to family reunion with the guy with the egg McMuffin.
Oh, yeah.
We'll fill you guys in off camera on that one, but it was,
Yeah.
it was pretty
He
good.
That was
didn't
an
even
interesting
offer-
experience.
Yeah.
That was a bad Uber experience. My
Yeah,
goodness,
yeah.
this guy almost got pulled over.
He was
Jeez.
not sharing his egg McMuffin. Let's just put it that way.
And he ran a red light too. That's the best part. And a police officer literally told him, "You just ran a red light, and we're gonna have someone come and pull you over." And he's like, "See ya," and just drove
Took
away.
up.
And I'm like, "Cool."
And you made your flight.
So anyway, those are the main things with buyers that I tended to do. My key thing was always communication at the highest level. If you know you're going on showings, check in with them the day before, send them the listings in advance, preemptively set them up, what's to expect. Like you said, Mel, kind of what the process is, make sure they're aware of it, and allow time at the end for conversation, right? Just to chat, because they will want to debrief. So if you just get in your car and leave after you're done, which a lot of agents do, they're like, okay, done this last
Yeah, you're
house,
missing
see
an
you later.
opportunity.
You're missing a huge opportunity to elevate your relationship with your clients. And they might have questions that you can get in the car and call that listing agent and get the answers to quickly, then now you're not going to even find out till that night or the next day when they email you or call you, right? So you can be slowing things down or creating a lost opportunity. So make sure you're giving them that time at the end as well. I think those are my main ones for buyers anyway.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that we'll just continue to do this from time to time on all of our shows, is like, let's pick times where we can share these little tidbits, because it is helpful for agents to, I mean, even amongst the 4 of us, we found a couple like, hey, okay, I'm going to do that now. Like that's great.
Yeah.
Right? That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. I want to thank you guys for watching our show today. I want to thank you coaches for taking the time to come get together and do this with us. And does anybody want to share anything before we take off? Is there anything going on? Mike, you've got a Friday morning call tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes.
Friday morning call. Yes, I do. Yes,
Yeah.
9 o'clock.
Are you still focusing on
we need to email
motivation?
Mike his schedule.
Yeah. Are you still focusing on motivations for Friday, or what are you doing these days?
So motivations are typically Wednesdays. Fridays, what we typically do is we'll actually review, we'll go over a masterclass. We have a subscription to masterclass, and we'll actually go through one of the videos there. So it's actually real estate related, funny enough. Not funny enough, it should be, but in this particular case, it really is. Sometimes they're, about negotiating or a specific part.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
The
or
general
business
topic is-
mindset.
Yeah, this one is generally just about the real estate. The exact topic is real estate. So it's really cool. So it's a great way to learn more about the industry and see it from a different perspective from somebody else, right? Which is awesome. So tune in 9 o'clock to 9:30 tomorrow morning.
Beautiful.
Love that.
All right, everybody. If you aren't a member of our coaching community already, you can check us out on Instagram and Facebook. We are at PSN Coaching or Productivity Success Network. You can find us by our names: Jennifer Silvernagel, Mike Russo, Melissa Taylor. I'm Dylan Silvernagel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, everyone.
Have a good one.